creating a mask and masked layers in Adobe Animate. Let's first start by defining the mask layer. So on my timeline, I need to define a layer that's going to act as my mask. This can be a type layer, this can be shape, basically anything that has a fill. To prep my project here, let's do a few things. So my background layer is the circle, the yellow circle. My clock face layer consists of all the numbers. So what I want to do is break apart to place each one of these numbers on its own layer. With this layer selected, I navigate to Modify at the top menu, find Timeline, and select Distribute to Layers. Watch my timeline and the layers that are currently there when I click. So what happens is my clock face layer empties out. And in fact, if I show or hide, nothing changes because that layer is indeed empty. I have now the numbers on individual layers. And best practice here would be to rename these so I know which one is on which layer. To save time, I'm just going to rename the number 9 and the number 3. So now to create a mask layer, I have to tell Animate what I want to serve as the mask. There are two ways to do this. Number one, I could just right click on the layer and choose Mask. This would define this layer as a mask layer. The other method, with the layer selected, I could go to Modify, back to Timeline, into Layer Properties. Layer Properties will allow me to check Mask for this property of this specific layer. Click OK. And now what happens is this layer becomes a mask, as you can see indicated by the mask icon positioned in front of the layer name. Now let's define the masked layer. So I'm going to create a new layer. And to do this, I can either click the new layer icon in the timeline panel above layers, or I can navigate to the insert menu up here to timeline and layer. The new layer will always be placed above the current active layer. So in this case, I'm going to actually put it below. And you can see when I drag that below, it indented. So it already assumes that this is going to be the masked layer. All right, so I'm going to name this. And I'm going to place my content now on this layer. I can place content in one of a couple ways, actually several ways. I could go to File, and I could go to Import. I could either import it directly on the stage, or I could import it to the library. I can also work with an external library. So I can place content directly on the stage and it be done, or I can import it to the library, which I already have my pattern in my library. And in that case, making sure my proper layer is selected, I can click and drag it out of the library. And I can either click and drag on the name or on the image. All right, and now if I need to do any adjustments, I'm going to actually scale this down a bit to make the pattern just a little bit smaller. Now the last thing that needs to happen is I have to lock both layers. Animate does not know to apply the mask unless the layers involved are locked. And notice when I lock both of my mask and my masked layers, it disappeared. One little thing that I forgot about. I cannot have a drop shadow on my text and make the mask work. It's just confused with that. So let's undo both of these. Select my 9. And I'm going to go over into my properties panel and locate those filters. You can see I have a drop shadow that was applied. So I'm just going to delete the filter. And now let's go back and lock. There it is.